Peaking at 25 will never be the same. This is Citizen Kane.
Welcome to...
Hi! No, it's
Stepped on
fine.
you.
Keep going.
I'm Greg.
Hey guys, I'm Jackie.
Hey, how's it going?
Pretty good.
This is the podcast where two entertainment assistants talk about the Sight and Sound Top 100 list. And this is the number 2 slot, just behind Vertigo, Orson Welles' 1941 Citizen Kane.
So what have you been watching besides Xanadu? You didn't just watch Xanadu.
I saw it for the first time like 6 months ago, and then I've seen it like 4 times since then.
Are you serious?
Yeah, my sister came to visit over the summer, and I was like, Julia, we're watching Xanadu. She's like, oh. I'm like, just sit down.
Did she like it?
Yeah, you know, I showed her a bunch of movies. She didn't like any of them, but she thought Xanadu was like the best.
Cool.
I think she still didn't like love it. But yeah. So this week I saw a lot. So I was catching up. I was in New York, came back. You know, a lot of movies are out. I saw The French Dispatch.
You did?
We'll come back to that in a second. And then the day after I saw Last Night in Soho. And then last night I saw Dune.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's just like...
Really busy.
Yeah, I was just trying to catch up on everything.
Do you have AMC stubs?
No.
You just went and saw all these movies?
Yeah.
Did you watch Dune on HBO Max?
No, I saw it actually at AMC. I really wanted to see the first 2, and then Dune, I was like, yeah, like I like Dune, I like the David Lynch Dune and stuff, but I wasn't super jazzed to see it. And then my friend Matt, who you know, was like, hey, you want to go see Dune? And I was like, because he never asked me to go to the movies.
Yeah.
In fact, he goes to the movies probably like once every 5 years or something.
Okay.
So I was like, all right, Matt asked me, like, I'm going to go.
Yeah.
So we went last night. And you know what? Dune was actually my favorite of the 3 movies.
No, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
In fact, so I saw The French Dispatch.
Yeah.
And hated it.
No.
It's garbage. It's garbage.
You're lying.
No, I swear to God, it's garbage. I think it's like the first sign, not even the first sign. I think it's like a pretty big sign that he's like fading. Like Wes Anderson is in sharp decline. It was trash.
No.
It's trash. It's absolute trash. Like there's not been one of his movies before this that I like actively disliked. Like some of them I'm a little indifferent to. Like I didn't love Isle of Dogs. I didn't.
What?
Even
I
like
love Isle
Moonrise
of Dogs.
Kingdom. I don't love.
That's my favorite.
Is that your favorite?
It's like tied with Grand Budapest, but yeah.
Oh, those two.
Love Moonrise Kingdom.
I like Moonrise Kingdom enough, but I don't love it. And maybe I just need to see it again. I've seen it a couple times, but my favorites are
Tenenbaums.
It's so cliche. Rushmore, Royal Tenenbaums, and Darjeeling Limited. I love.
Oh my God, I love Darjeeling Limited.
It's so good.
It is so good.
See, I want him to go back to making those kinds of movies because those 3 movies have so much kind of like heartbreak in them, and there's like real feelings and emotions, and I feel like he's gotten so far away from that. Maybe I'm setting the bar so low for you that you'll actually end up enjoying it more.
I really don't think I'm gonna hate it. Like I can positively say I'm not gonna hate it.
It's soulless. It's fucking soulless.
Oh my God.
It is. There's no life to it. There's no compassion. There's no heartbreak. There's no feeling. There are no real characters. It's all just kind of that
like
Wes Anderson
world,
storybook whimsy. It starts off like there's like a prologue. I was like, okay, yeah. And then as it went on, it was just like, oh no, this is bad.
Oh no.
You can do that, but I need real characters and I need some kind of heart. Like if there's no emotion in the movie, it's just no.
No.
Yeah.
How unfortunate.
Yeah.
I have not watched a single thing. Well, I watched 1 hour of Lord of the Rings yesterday. 2 Towers. Yeah, because I'd watched the first one like, I don't know.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I saw it kind of recently, and we were on the next one, and we watched it for an hour, and then it was like 11, and we're like, we're tired.
An hour.
Only an hour in. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I've been horrible. Been watching a lot of Girls.
You seen it before?
No.
Oh, first time.
First time watching Girls.
Oh, okay.
I'm in season 2.
Nice. You like it?
I liked season 1 much more. It's kind of already waning, which is like sad because that usually happens like season 3 of a show.
4
I don't
or 5,
know.
something.
Did you watch it?
Yeah, but I haven't seen all. I've seen like the first 2 or 3 seasons.
I still
off.
think to this day that the pilot is the best episode of that show, which is like, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? I can't tell. I don't know.
Yeah.
The pilot really spoke to me. I really liked the pilot. Okay, Citizen Kane.
Citizen
It was
Kane.
released in 1941. Orson Welles starred in, produced, directed, and, quote, this is in quotes, co-wrote. This story about the richest man in America, a newspaper tycoon who dies alone in his gigantic palace, leading reporters on a quest to figure out what his last words, Rosebud, meant. The head reporter, Mr. Thompson, interviews several people from Kane's life, trying to figure out who this man really was, but is left with only pieces of the jigsaw puzzle that was his life.
Literal jigsaw puzzle.
Literal.
As they make it very clear.
I love it. That's actually a great motif.
It
I
is.
really like it.
Yeah.
Herman J. Mankiewicz is the credited writer along with Wells. Also, John Houseman is credited as a contributing writer, but there was this big scandal over authorship because Orson Welles, long story short, Orson Welles was very used to just getting credit for everything. But he didn't really write this script. I mean, I don't know if you guys are fans of the film Mank, but if you watch Mank, you kind of get this really great look into how like Mankiewicz's relationship with William Randolph Hearst really influenced the story. Like it would not be what it is without that. So I don't know how much Orson Welles really contributed to the script, but this was the only Oscar that he won for Best Original Screenplay, as well as Herman Mankiewicz, and they shared it.
Wow.
So yeah, just putting that out there.
Do you know if, because I know Orson Welles, the whole reason he got Citizen Kane was because of what he did for the War of the Worlds like radio broadcast, and they kind of gave him this like carte blanche, like, oh, you can make whatever.
You can come to Hollywood.
He tried like a couple projects, tried to get a couple off the ground before Citizen Kane, and I know they didn't happen. Do you know if like the script for this just kind of like felt, because I don't think it was like he didn't will this into existence, right? Mankiewicz wrote it first, because I haven't seen Mank actually.
Well, in Mank, and I will admit right now that Mank, I don't know how historically accurate Mank is. In the film, it's pretty much like Herman Mankiewicz is like assigned to be the writer for this movie, and Wells comes in every now and then and like talks to him. And I'm sure like when he had a first draft, I think they talked about it together and they made changes and things like that. But yeah, but the film is Orson Welles's film directorial debut. He brought many of his Mercury Theater actors with him. So we have Joseph Cotten as Jedediah Leland, his closest friend.
Joseph Cotten.
Yeah, I really like him. Dorothy Cummingore as Susan Alexander Kane, his second wife. Everett Sloan as Mr. Bernstein. And George Caloris as Mr. Thatcher, the banker that is assigned to take care of him.
As a child.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, take him from home.
Also, Agnes Moorehead.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Agnes Moorehead plays his
How dare
mother. Mary Kane. That's her name.
Oh, okay.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, must be.
She just leads those scenes. She's so great.
Yeah, she is great.
And I love
time, but she's great.
Yeah, and I love how at the end they have that title card that says like most of these actors are new to motion pictures. That was I love that touch about this movie.
It has a homespun feel to it. It feels like an independent movie.
Yeah.
Hearst did block this movie, and because Hearst had a lot of clout in Hollywood,
He
really
did
kind of
indeed.
like blacklisted Orson Welles, and this was like the only movie, and it was rare that 25-year-old Orson Welles, who had never made a movie before, was given like final cut, like
was he?
on this movie, and I think that's the last time he ever.
No way.
Because famously, his movies, I think his follow-up to this was The Magnificent Ambersons, which we'll get to because it's on the list.
Oh wow.
It was taken away from him and like recut, and like a bunch of stuff was cut out of it.
Yeah.
So he resorted in the 70s to making just super cheap independent movies like in his backyard with like Peter Bogdanovich.
I was just gonna say him and Peter Bogdanovich were very close.
What do you think of old Peter? Do you like Peter?
I like Peter.
I love Peter. That's the dream. Like he came in as a young guy made friends with all these like old directors like John Ford, Orson Welles, Fritz Lang, got to know them and just like hang out with them. And Orson Welles lived at Peter Bogdanovich's house, like in his guest room when he fell in hard times.
Yeah.
But they had this great like that's the dream. Like I want to meet all these old directors and like befriend them.
But Peter Bogdanovich was a critic.
He was a critic, yeah. He started as a critic.
Isn't that kind of weird for a critic to be like friends with directors?
Well, I think because he had a bigger, it's not like he just wanted to be a critic. Like he also
he always wanted to be. Okay,
he would
that
interview
makes
them
sense.
and he would write books and like film books and stuff. So he had this kind of bigger thing going on.
Okay, that makes sense.
I know that when he did The Last Picture Show, which was not his first movie, I feel like it is, and I'm like, I have to correct myself. It was a movie called Targets that had like Boris Karloff in it. But Last Picture Show, which was his first like true movie, people compared it to Citizen Kane. People said this is the best debut since Orson Welles.
But it wasn't a debut.
No, because he had made a movie before. But
how funny!
Yeah, I actually can't think of Orson Welles without thinking of Peter Bogdanovich.
Really?
This is such an entertaining movie. Like I think on a surface level, it works so well. Like you don't even need to be a film person to enjoy Citizen Kane. You think differently?
See, I think kind of differently. And this is based on, we're going to get into it. A lot of the Letterboxd reviews I was seeing was, this is so boring. I couldn't get through this.
Oh man, see, I don't get that at all. I do not get that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's entertaining. I think it's very entertaining, but here, like, okay, it's so hard to talk about this movie. And I feel like there's an elephant in the room. It's so hard to talk about this movie because it is so, we are told constantly, love this movie. This is the greatest movie. It's hard to talk about this movie because I feel like everything has been said about it. It's hard to talk about it because a part of me feels like I'm not qualified because so many scholars like base their whole lives around this movie. And a third part of me is because why this movie is hard for me is because there's not one moment of human to human interaction that really speaks to me. And I understand if that's the point of the movie. I understand that it's like this lack of humanity is like meant to show his lack of humanity and his almost like superhumanness. Like he's compared to like Noah and Kublai Khan and the pharaohs. Like I get it. But that is also a reason why I have difficulty talking about this movie.
Yeah.
Because it's so revered. And yet there isn't one moment, doesn't make me cry. Ever.
No.
Like never. I've never shed a tear.
No.
About this movie. And I'm not saying you need to cry for a movie to be great, but it's just something about like even Vertigo, like the beauty of that movie makes me cry.
Yeah.
Certain moments of that movie where it's just like so beautiful and like the music and its thing. Like I feel my eyes getting a little wet.
Well, it's funny you're talking about the music. This is the same composer. Bernard
Is it
Herrmann
really?
did Citizen
Great.
Kane and most of Hitchcock's movies.
It's great.
You texted me this morning saying you were nervous about talking about this movie.
I did.
And yeah, it's very like, this is the best movie ever made in quotations. Like this is the one. But I think as far as those kinds of movies go, I think it's like pretty approachable. At least I've always felt it's pretty approachable because like I'm much more scared to talk about like some Tarkovsky or like Colored Pomegranates or something.
Persona.
This is like, because this movie is so kind of like straightforward. And I think so much of its pedigree just comes from its technical merits. Like, it's a really beautifully put together movie.
Yeah,
it
gorgeous.
Looks beautiful. It moves really well. The way in which it's told. In fact, I think that's a lot of the charm of the movie is the storytelling itself. It's not the story. It's not the characters necessarily.
It's a simple story if you think about it.
It's your classic rise and fall. And it's told in such kind of, for the time, innovative way.
Yeah.
The way that it's kind of set up, like a great opening. You get a mystery already, like what is Rosebud? And then you get the structure of them interviewing several different people who knew him and in this quest of what does Rosebud mean? So it's kind of driving the movie.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I saw this in high school. Let's talk about our like initial impressions and stuff like that.
Yes.
When did you first see Citizen Kane?
High school.
Classic. What were you kind of indifferent?
I think I was kind of indifferent, to be honest. Also, I wasn't very cultured back then. Like I don't know. I I think when you're told to love something so much, it just automatically puts this like pressure on you. And I mean, but I knew people in high school who actually said like, oh yeah, like that's my favorite movie. And I was like, really? Like, I don't know. I don't know. That when you say what's your first impression, I know we usually structure this like, what was your first impression of watching it this time? But I feel like you're asking me right now when I first watched it.
Yeah, your history with it.
Yeah, my history with it. It's not a very dear one because I'm not like emotionally attached to this movie.
You don't go to sleep at night thinking about Charles Foster Kane.
No. Like I watched it in high school. Maybe I watched it like a couple times in college. I watched it before Mank to refresh myself. But yeah,
so you've seen it a handful of times.
Yeah.
Interesting.
What about you? I feel like you're dying for me to ask you.
No. My story's not that interesting on this. I saw it. So I remember I was going on a trip to, my family had a cabin in Tahoe. And I remember I was in high school and I just wanted to brush up on classic movies that I hadn't seen. And I remember I went to a record store called Rasputin Music, which was a Bay Area thing.
There used to be one in Fresno.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
Rasputin Music. There was one in San Lorenzo, which is where I grew up, and I would just go to it all the time, and they had Criterion and everything.
It was a really cool store. At least the one I went to. It was so cool.
I loved it. Yeah, the fact that something like that existed in my hometown, which had nothing. We had nothing cool.
Yeah.
Was awesome. And honestly, a lot of my like film education came from just going there, and like they would organize movies by director and stuff.
Oh, cool.
But I remember stopping there on the way to Tahoe. And I was like, okay, I'm going to grab like 2 classic movies that I haven't seen. And I got Citizen Kane and Casablanca. And
Classic.
I remember the first night I watched Casablanca and I actually did not like it. I thought it was very dry, kind of boring because it's a lot of talking. Yeah. I did not like Casablanca when I first saw it. I saw Citizen Kane the second night and I was like, oh my God, this is so much better.
Yeah.
So at that age, I wasn't like in love with it, but I remember thinking like, you know, because it's kind of gothic. I love the whole Xanadu vibe, and especially the last act of the movie with this, you know, kind of crumbling palace is so evocative and atmospheric and stuff. Yeah, and it's your classic rise and fall story. As a kid who was obsessed with like Scorsese and stuff, I knew this arc very well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've seen it a handful of times over the years. It's silly to call any movie the greatest ever made.
I agree.
I can't. You could say your favorite, but to single out one movie and be like, that's the best one that's ever been made, I think that's ridiculous.
I do too.
So I've never subscribed to that. I've always attributed this movie's status as the greatest because Orson Welles was 25 when he made it and wore so many hats, and, you know, just sort of how it laid this like film grammar for years to come.
I agree. Yeah, I mean,
I don't love it though. Like, I mean, I like it.
Okay, I have a question. Do you like Casablanca more now or Citizen Kane?
Honestly, probably Citizen Kane.
Really? I think I like Casablanca more.
Yeah,
I know, I'm such a girl.
It's also been a long time since I've seen Casablanca. It's probably been like 10 years, but I've seen it, you know, a handful of times.
It's so witty and romantic and like adventure. I don't know.
And they both start with like newsreel sequences, both movies. Yeah.
Do you want to talk about the technical stuff?
We should talk about the technical stuff.
Let's talk about the technical stuff.
This is shot by Greg Toland. This is a legendary. The shooting of this movie is legendary. You know, because you have stuff, and we'll talk about this scene more later because it ties into a favorite site.
Okay.
But there's, you know, they famously like dug holes in grounds of sets so that they could put the camera on the floor and get these like cool shots. And so there's a lot of, I mean,
the foot when it's Leland and him talking, and it's that shot.
Yep,
like
you see their shoes,
Yeah.
And then stuff like early on after the newsreel rolls, and you see one of the like reporters or whatever, kind of like there's a spotlight on him, and you kind of see his shadow as he's like moving.
That newsroom scene and the light and the shadow, that's like straight unmatched. Yeah, that is really, really gorgeous.
Yeah.
The first time like deep focus was really used effectively in a movie, because before that it was just like, okay, this is in the foreground, this is in the background, and you're not really going to see what's in the background.
Yeah.
And it works so well.
It works so well. I mean, there's the famous shot, and I know all of these scenes have been picked apart by generations of people, but there's the scene when, as a kid, Kane is outside and he's in the snow. He's framed in the window. And then his mom is at the table.
Yes.
It's just, there's so much depth to that shot.
Exactly. And then the other big technical thing are the transitions, right? Like these transitions are just so smooth and so unique. There's so many I love. Like I almost think that like it's not even a necessarily favorite sight of mine when it comes to this movie. I think it's like favorite transition, you know? Mm-hmm. But no, I have a particular site as well. But no, let's talk about these transitions. They're so good. Yeah. Like the poster when we're seeing Susan for the first time, the lightning, and then it's her poster, and then we go up and we're in the skylight.
Yeah.
That one's one of my
I was just about to bring that up.
favorites. That's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
I love the picture of the staff of the Chronicle turning into the picture from the future.
Yeah.
And that's one of the ways that he manipulates time in this movie. Of course, we have the famous breakfast table montage. Yeah. That's great. What other transitions? They're so great. Even the transition, like, I mean, this isn't even really a transition, but both times when we're at like his childhood home, he's framed in the window and then it pulls back and now we're inside, and then it does the same thing when they're leaving. It kind of follows them, like it just moves and they're outside. And
so you know the one
this is a horrible way to describe shots through a non visual medium, but yeah.
We can't show you, but just take our word for it. One of the ones when they're inside when he's a kid and his mom is talking with what's his name again? Mr. Thatcher. So the camera's kind of pulling back from the window where you see Kane outside. And then all of a sudden they're sitting at a table. So basically
they put in that table, right?
You know, exactly.
Oh,
that's
no,
like
I'm sorry. Finish. Please finish.
No. Yeah, they had to like move the table in pieces, like put it together as the camera moved past it.
Yeah,
and you can kind of see the glass like shake a little bit.
Yeah,
but it's pretty effortless. Yeah.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of that kind of like visual trickery in this movie, because like they play with, you were talking about deep focus, they play with perspective, because they'll be sitting around a table, you know, at a bank or something, or in his office, and then Kane will walk towards the window slowly, and you'll realize, oh, that's a much longer distance than I thought it was. And then all of a sudden these windows that you thought were like normal sized windows are like huge and like looming over him, and he looks so small framed in there. So they play with that stuff in so many different ways.
Yeah. Also, just like a great pan that I love is like the drugstore scene, how he meets Susan. So it's like we open with like a horse and carriage like in the street. We hear a splash, and then she leaves the drugstore and she's laughing at something, and it just pans to the right and he's covered in mud. Like that's just like a classic. I love that scene. That's one of my favorite.
I do think that's where a lot of the movie's pedigree comes from. It's the way in which it's told. And again, we use a lot of these things now. And we've seen them 100 times.
Exactly, but we don't realize that it came from here.
But I also think it's dangerous to give Citizen Kane too much credit. Like some people will be like, this is ground zero. Like, no. Like if you watch silent movies, you'll see like the visual sort of language was already off the charts. Like you look at something like Metropolis, or I mean, so many of those movies are so visually inventive.
Yeah. So here's something that's not, I mean, it's kind of technical, but not really. And this all just comes from like that newsroom scene, right? And the lights in there, and the fact that we're not seeing anyone's face. We never see a close-up of Thompson's face. We never see him. He's very camera shy in this movie. And you don't really ever get a good look at his face.
That's true.
Thompson is the reporter that's investigating Rosebud. Why do you think that is?
Because, you know, I think it's the classic thing, like he's a stand-in for the audience or something, you know?
Right.
Sort of faceless reporter.
Right. And it got me thinking, like, I don't think movies that have a similar structure where it's someone investigating the past and they make it all about like that person and their connection to that person that they're interviewing, or like not interviewing, but investigating. I don't think movies like that work where you have your main character is the one that is like investigating.
Oh, you don't like those. You like not knowing about them because you like them as a device just to
exactly, because I just don't think it'll work to have like, I mean, it depends. I'm thinking
what about like Silence of the Lambs?
No, but that's different. That's an investigation. That's like
true.
a murder mystery. I mean, like someone reading someone's memoirs and then tying it into their own life, and it's like,
Okay.
this is relevant to me. Like, I'm thinking actually of like a good example. One that reminded me of this is like Virgin Suicides, for example. You don't know much about those boys that are obsessed with the girls and are trying to solve this mystery. A lot of them don't even have names. Like they really don't have characters, and I think that works so well.
Interesting.
It's something about that, like not focusing on the people who are trying to find the answers, trying to investigate.
Yeah, it's
when the
recognizing
movie is
them as a device.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
And I think that Citizen Kane is like the best example of that.
Yeah, because if they'd wasted time on this guy, like this guy's life, no one cares.
No one gives a shit. It has nothing to do with the story.
Yeah, he's just a device.
Yeah. So since this is a mystery of a movie, a jigsaw puzzle, if you will, Greg, I'm going to ask you a few questions just to try and to unload this mystery, to try and get closer to the answer. Who do you think knew Kane best?
God, Jedediah. His friend Jedediah. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I feel like that relationship is kind of central in the movie, and you see how much it hurts him. The fact that when so later in the movie, you know, they have a falling out. He moves to the Chicago office. They don't see each other for a long time, and then he gives Susan, his wife, a bad review at the opera, and he's passed out his typewriter. Kane finishes the review in Jedediah's tone of it being a bad review, fires him, then gives him a $25,000 check, which he rips up and sends back his declaration.
Is that the check that he ripped up? I thought it was the playbill, because you know how we see him at the opera, like ripping up his playbill and like making a fan out of it.
Oh, do you think
it must be the check? No, the check makes
I
much
feel like
more
it's the check.
sense.
Yeah, because he wouldn't want his money.
Right.
It's sad because he's kind of, you can tell that Charles, I'm just call him Charles,
Charlie,
is like genuinely broken up about it. You know,
Yeah.
I feel like they're kind of, that relationship is pretty central because, you know, he has different wives throughout the movie. He has different, like, friends come and go, but the Jedediah relationship is like kind of the key one. And I think,
like
too,
that.
it's because Joseph Cotton is just so good in the movie.
He's really, really good.
Yeah.
I was going to say Susan, but
Okay.
that was just because I feel like she is the only one who successfully gets her way with him. At least with the singing portion. It's tragic the way that she does it. So Kane basically builds her an opera house, even though she's not that great of a singer, hires this Italian maestro to come and train her, but her voice just isn't good. She's getting embarrassed every night going on stage. She doesn't want to do it. And Kane is very controlling and essentially forces her to. And then one night she overdoses on sleeping pills to prove a point.
This is perfect because I wanted to pull that clip, actually.
go
so
for
after
it.
she overdoses on pills, they have this great kind of exchange. She's
Where
in bed.
she said, and that's the only part that I got really close to crying.
Yeah, it's sad.
It is.
It's the saddest moment in the movie.
But he gives in, and she is the only one that's able to do that. I guess Jedediah really takes a stand when he rips up his like check, but the thing
It's
is
not in
like
person.
he's still is doing the same thing after that. He's still making her go up on stage.
Right.
So yeah, that's why I think Susan and him, like their relationship, I feel like is the most important. I don't know, but no, Jedediah as well. I buy that too.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's play that scene.
play that
yeah,
scene.
she's in bed. She's just tried to kill herself, overdosing on sleeping pills. And this is where he allows her to discontinue singing. So this is what they have to say to each other.
Charlie, I couldn't make you see how I felt, Charlie. But I couldn't go through with the singing again. You don't know what it means to know that that a whole audience just doesn't want you.
That's when you've got to fight him. All right. You won't have to fight him anymore. It's their loss.
Well, the way that it's lit too, like it's dimly lit. You hear some kind of like organ music coming in from outside the window. It's kind of has an eerie feel to it. And it's just, it's a quiet moment in this movie that's kind of like always chugging along. It's this like really sad, quiet moment.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, my next question for you is who is the most reliable storyteller in this movie? Definitely not the butler.
No. Good question. No one's really coming to mind.
I think Thatcher.
You think Thatcher?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
Because he's not alive. Maybe it's just because he's not alive and it was written down in Word and I just find that more reliable.
That's true.
I don't know.
That's true. Then yeah, honestly, that seems like the obvious answer.
Yeah, maybe.
Because Jedediah is kind of a snake at this point.
Right.
Like, it's, you know.
No, yeah, definitely.
Telling him to go down and sneak some cigars in, wrap them up so
Oh my
they
God,
look like toothpaste.
I love that.
Yeah,
I love
that.
that.
Wait, does he have a Southern accent early on? Or does he kind of get that
He's not
later?
from the South. He's a very New England. I thought he was a spoiled New England kid whose dad was like, who lost all his money, but he went to a very prestigious college and he has like a transatlantic accent.
Yeah. That's
yeah, go down to the cigars. Give me a few good. Yeah, he really does. Turn Southern.
Like toothpaste.
You know, that young doctor has an idea to. He wants me to live. It's just, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the whole like structure and the device of using these like narrators, these unreliable narrators, loss of memory, personal feelings, those all go into their accounts of Kane, right?
Yeah.
And of course that ties with the theme of like the newspaper reporting the truth versus letting feelings getting in the way. It also, of course, ties into the theme of like, do you ever really know a guy? Like,
right.
And it's just so important, the use of narrators, not narrate. I mean, I guess you wouldn't call them narrators, but just storytellers in this film. So that declaration of morals, and this is where it gets really to like the meat of the movie, I feel like. The declaration of morals, which Kane draws up like the first night that he takes over the Inquirer. It's basically like a Declaration of Independence, kind of, and he has it published on the front page. He has now taken over the newspaper, and he promises the people that no special interests will get in the way of the truth. Mm-hmm. And I feel like if this movie is like, I feel like what I most take away from this movie is what is man if he doesn't have special interests? Do you get what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not defending him.
Right.
He shouldn't have started a war with yellow journalism or lied and just like manipulate people. But I think it's just like.
Well, there's that great, this is off topic, but just what you just said.
Mm-hmm.
There's that moment where he loses because of the whole scandal with him.
Fraud at polls.
Fraud at polls. What does that remind you?
Oh my God. It was so. No, really?
Yeah.
He's very Trumpian.
Mm-hmm.
He really is. The fact that he was just a rich man, decided to run for office. It was very Trumpy.
Yeah.
It really
has he
was.
seen this?
He must have.
You know, this is a cautionary tale, right?
Exactly.
Not something to aspire to.
But like, yeah, I mean, he wanted to hold himself up to this like objective news, like truth, and then his like last words are just so obscure and not newsworthy. I think it just all has to do with like, and this is putting it really simply, but just like people's feelings, people's interests, who people really are that won't make news stories. Just this monumentally small last words for such a monumental man. It's
because
just
he was such a like unknowable person that was kind of part of the whole mystique.
Exactly. Yeah. And then like the narrators, I mean, of course their personal feelings are going to get in the way of how they tell the story.
Yeah. Let me ask you this, because now that we're talking about the word, did you know, before you saw the movie, did you know the whole
first
Rosebud
time
thing?
I don't think I did.
I'm trying to remember if I did. I don't know if I did.
I don't think so.
Because I feel like it's one of those big reveals that's like on par with the Darth Vader, Luke Skywalker, like father-son thing, where like it's just in the public consciousness where like everyone knows.
Yeah.
Like, of course, Vader's his dad.
But I don't think I did. I'm going to the Academy Museum on my birthday. And I think, am I wrong? Do they have a sled there? I think they have.
Do they really?
I believe they do.
That's exciting.
So, yeah, I mean, like, this is the story of a man basically who it's such a simple story.
It's a simple
Right?
story
Like-
told in really broad strokes. Like there's nothing, it's not a particularly like subtle movie, which is
No,
fine because it's telling this kind of
yeah.
grandiose
Mm-hmm.
rise and fall.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's part of the charm. Like, is there a lot of nuance in terms of like character stuff? And like, no, not really.
Mm.
It's big. People are kind of like fit into archetypes.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the appeal. I mean, look at Xanadu, right? Like, and the way that it's shot in this overly gothic, extravagant way.
Mhm.
You know, it's like we're turning it up to like 150. Like that's what this portrayal is. Although if you know, Hearst Castle, like, have you been to Hearst Castle?
I have.
You have?
I love it. I love
It's
it.
so cool.
Yeah.
Which tours have you done?
I did we did the main one. What is that? Like the
Yeah.
like the main
it's like the main one
room,
where you kind of get a little
the one
bit.
where you end in the movie theater. No,
Okay.
you always end in the pool, I think. Not the pool, the indoor pool.
Right.
Not the big outdoor one.
Uh-huh.
I did that. I did upstairs. I did 3. I did that
Oh.
one. I did upstairs. And I did the kitchen, which is was like a bonus one.
like
and it
the
was
servant quarters and stuff.
Yeah, it wasn't even servants' quarters, I don't think. It was mostly just the kitchen and wine cellar. But it was really cool.
Was that one cool?
Yeah.
That one I haven't done,
It was cool.
but I've done those other two.
Should we talk about Hearst a little bit?
Well, okay, so first of all, this was like not great for his career.
No.
It turns out. And Hearst kind of put the kibosh on, press about this movie getting out at the time. And because of that, it wasn't this huge like hit when it came out because I think a lot of people didn't see it. And its reputation as like this great movie didn't happen until sometime in the 50s, maybe the 60s, when people, I feel like the French New Wave guys and like people like Peter Bogdanovich and stuff were coming along and being like, wait, Citizen Kane, like this is a masterpiece. But yeah, Hearst, from my understanding, it's not like Hearst's life to a T.
No.
It takes some inspiration in the same way that like Paul Thomas Anderson's The Master is a little riff on like L. Ron Hubbard, but it's not
Exactly. I
the
think
L.
that's a
Ron Hubbard
really
story.
good comparison.
Oh, thanks. But yeah,
Like, for example, Marion Davies and William Randolph Hearst lived together until he died. They were very devoted to each other. She sold $1 million worth of like real estate and jewelry to save him out of a hard time.
wow.
Yeah.
Was that his only wife?
No, so he was married. They were never married. So he was married and had like 5 kids, I think.
Wow.
And then he met Marion Davies, and him and his wife never divorced. They just separated. And him and Davies never married. They just lived together.
But yeah, so Hearst Castle was famous for, and this is hinted at in Citizen Kane, but you don't see it, but kind of being this revolving door of like guests, like Cary Grant and all these
Charlie
people. Charlie
Chaplin.
Chaplin would stay there. But yeah, so they talk, there's a line in Citizen Kane about how like, oh, the guests are still here or something like that. But yeah, it was kind of this like permanent hotel for celebrities.
I believe they even mention Hearst in the movie because, like, do you remember in the newsroom, like, the guy that's, like, leading him was like, I want to know about his life. I'm talking this and this and this. And he's like, take great men, for example. And he, like, names a bunch. One of them's Hearst. It's like,
Oh, does he? I totally missed that. Does he really say Hearst?
yeah.
Oh,
Which is crazy.
yeah. They just like, you couldn't be any less subtle.
Yeah. And William Randolph Hearst was a newspaper tycoon, did have this palace. Marion Davies was a silent film star who then had a really hard time transitioning into talkies. And so it's really interesting that, like, yes, Susan is like this singer who doesn't really have a great voice. And can I just say, I was going to talk about this when we talked about sound, but after her opening night, after she kind of bombs the opening night, she literally turns into Lena Lamont from Singing in the Rain.
She does.
And I think that's so ironic with the whole Marion Davies thing. Like, her voice is so pitchy after that opening night. It's like there's a great moment when he first meets Susan. It's the night that they meet. And he goes up to her apartment. And we can play the clip. Essentially, they're talking about like mothers and stuff. And she says like, oh, you know, like my mom really pushed me. She really wanted me to be a singer. Like she wanted the best for me. Like, you know how mothers are. And it lingers on his face a little bit. And yeah, here's the clip.
What do you do?
Well, I work at Siegelman's. I'm in charge of the sheet music there.
Is that what you want to do?
No, I wanted to be a singer, I guess. That is, I didn't. My mother did.
What happened to singing?
Well, my mother always thought... She always talked about grand opera for me, imagine. But my voice isn't that kind. It's just... Well, you know what mothers are like.
Yes, I know.
I just love the way that he clocks it and he agrees with her because it's not like the classic cliche, oh yeah, I actually didn't have a mother growing up, like, but I'm just going to pretend to be polite. It's not that, because what she's saying is kind of true and relevant to him. His mother did want the best for him. It's just there's this like twang because we know that like actually he grew up without his mother. It's just a very unique moment. It's not like other moments we see like that in movies all the time where it's like, yeah, I know my mom, but it's actually an orphan talking, trying to be polite.
Yeah.
You know, does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
Shall we get into we haven't even talked about our favorite sight and our favorite sound yet.
We'll do that. Let's do that. What was your favorite sight?
Oh my gosh. It's so hard. That's why I said like, it's almost like it's my favorite transitions. Like those transitions are really what.
Yeah,
you know,
that can be a favorite sight.
But if I had to choose one, if we're actually choosing like one shot, it's probably just like the aerial shot after he's finished talking with the butler, after Mr. Thompson, is that his name?
I think so.
He's so unimportant.
Yeah.
Has just finished talking to the butler and they're walking down the stairs. It's like the last 5 minutes of the movie and there's just this great, beautiful aerial shot of like everything boxed up, and you just can't beat it. It's so great.
Yeah, I wonder if people thought the first time they saw this movie that we were gonna wrap the movie and not know what Rosebud was, because I feel like that's what it's leading towards, especially with that shot.
Definitely,
it's like, oh, here's all this stuff. We're coming back up. This is the end of the movie. Some things just aren't knowable. They say something like that, and then it's like, oh, we're not gonna know, but then they give it to you. You get it.
It is good.
You get it.
What's your favorite sight?
My favorite sight is, because I love Gothic stuff.
No, yes, of course.
It's a shot that it's later in the movie. Him and Susan are at Xanadu. She's doing a jigsaw puzzle on a table, and there's the fireplace.
Yeah.
And it's, again, one of those, they do so many shots like this in the movie, but Charles walks towards the fireplace, and of course it like engulfs him because you realize how huge it is. But it's just this great, on the right of the frame there's like this serpent or something. It's like this serpent head that's kind of like jutting out from the side. It's very Gothic, and it's just like, it's the most decadent point in the movie. And it's just this great image of her asking what time it is in New York.
And she says like at night.
It's
like there isn't a 12-hour difference between, first of all, Florida and New York aren't they on the same time?
So yeah, because he tells her it's 11:30 in New York.
Yeah, it's pretty funny.
And she's like, oh, people are just going out now and
going
like,
to clubs. Yeah,
and it's so,
shows are getting out.
It's Xanadu as a void. It's like Xanadu as a black hole.
I must say, Xanadu is so much more empty than Hearst Castle. Hearst Castle is like a cozy, crowded place.
Yeah.
It's not this like huge empty hall that represents the void inside of him.
No.
It's not like that at all.
It's tastefully done.
Oh my, it's
beautiful.
Yeah. I love it. Your favorite sound?
Favorite sound? It's this great line, and of course it's Joseph Cotton. It's so funny. So towards the end of the movie, when he's talking to the reporter is talking to Joseph Cotton, he's starting to wrap up his interview, and he's talking about Xanadu, and this is what he says.
Hey, nurse! 5 years ago he wrote from that place down there in the south, what's it called? Shangri-La, El Dorado, Sloppy Joe's. What is the name of that place?
His dismissal of the name of Xanadu, and the fact that, first of all, that he says Sloppy Joe's, that gets me.
That gets me. It's hilarious.
Like Shangri-La, El Dorado, Sloppy Joe's.
It's so funny.
Like at that point, it's just first like a funny line, but then also it's like his complete distaste for Kane.
Exactly.
Just so dismissive.
Yeah.
How about you? What's your favorite sound?
So mine is during the kind of montage of Kane has taken over the Inquirer, and he's publishing like all these like exposés on Thatcher, on his investments, on how he's just like a corrupt millionaire. And he's eating breakfast and his mouth is full. And he reads this headline, which reads, "Copper robbers indicted."
Copper robbers indicted.
Anyway, that's the scene. I think it's hilarious and silly.
It's funny we both picked
funny
scenes,
funny sounds.
Yeah.
I was gonna go with the clapping, but that's just so cliche. It's a good clap.
I think so. You could, you know, who cares if it's cliche? I feel like any scene in this movie that you say, it's less like, I don't know. It's Citizen Kane.
Should we get into Pauline Says?
Let's
What
get
does
into
Pauline
Pauline
say about the greatest film of all time?
So Pauline wrote a whole thing on Citizen Kane called Raising Kane, based on the chicken place.
Yeah.
So she said, she starts off with this, and I think this gets right to the point. Citizen Kane is perhaps the one American talking picture that seems as fresh now as the day it opened. It may seem even fresher. A great deal in the movie that was conventional and almost banal in 1941 is so far in the past as to have been forgotten and become new, and the pop characterizations look modern and rather better than they did at the time. She says, new audiences may enjoy Orson Welles' theatrical flamboyance. Also, she wrote this in 1971. New audiences may enjoy Orson Welles' theatrical flamboyance even more than earlier generations did, because they're so unfamiliar with the traditions it came out of. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of, she talks about how he was 25 when it opened. He used to be accused of excessive showmanship. Which, I mean, absolutely. You can see this is a very precocious movie made by a very precocious young guy. But yeah, she's a big champion for the movie. I mean, not that it needed a champion at this point in like 1971, but no, she loved the movie, which is maybe a little surprising because so much of it is technical. Mm-hmm. And I don't think this is like an incredibly deep movie. No. Even the big reveal with Rosebud, like, okay, it's childhood. Like, it's a little simple, which is fine, you know. But it kind of seems like the kind of movie that Pauline Kael would like be indifferent to, or, you know, have a hot take on.
Yeah, I agree.
But she wrote many words on Citizen Kane.
You said that there's a book? Is that a...
Yeah,
Raising
it's a whole
Kane is a...
book-length essay. So yeah, she basically wrote a book
like
on Citizen Kane. It's like a thesis, yeah.
Wow. Let's get into Letterboxd. So, the first review. This reviewer gave it 5 stars and a heart. This is something I would do, but I don't think I've given it 5 stars. I don't know if I've rated it. I usually only rate stuff that I really love. Like if I want to mark it as like a movie that really is important to me. So maybe, I don't know. This person gave it 5 stars.
Okay.
But the review is, I mean, it wasn't as good as Shrek 2, 2004, but it was okay.
And you go way back with Shrek 2.
I love Shrek 2. So I think this is hilarious. I love Shrek 2.
Someone said, half a star. This movie is ass.
Oh my God. I always end up with the really vulgar ones. Mom, if you're listening, I'm sorry. I want to suck 25-year-old Charles Kane like a Capri Sun.
Oh, God. I mean, good-looking guy.
He's super cute in this movie. Know? Okay.
Someone gave it half a star and said, Click is better. The Adam Sandler comedy. Sorry, dramedy.
Oh my God. 2 stars. Controversial opinion, but this was literally so fucking boring. And that's why I said, like, oh, I actually saw a lot where people said it was boring.
There's a lot. Someone gave it half a star and said, I left to get my laptop fixed. Shit film.
Oh my God. 1 star. I could do better.
Sure.
So funny.
Someone said, haven't watched it, but I'm bored.
Someone gave 2 stars and said, anyone who says this is their favorite movie is lying, which I agree with. I totally agree with that.
No, I mean, I think a lot of people might say it for the wrong reasons because they're trying to, but
Maybe it's not truthful.
if this was someone's favorite movie, I'd be like, okay, yeah, like I see that. It's not mine, but
Really?
I also respect. I feel like I might have downplayed my
Love for this movie?
No, I don't love the movie, but I really like it. Like I think it's a great movie. Like it's not in my like top, 20 or whatever, but like it's great. It's great.
It is.
And honestly, it's a joy to watch. Like
Yeah.
every time I watch it, I get into it and it's great.
Yeah.
Someone said, and listen, I hear this one. Someone said, it's certainly no Evil Dead 2 Dead by Dawn. It's absolutely not Evil Dead 2, but you know what? That's okay. Evil Dead 2 has its own charms, but
someone gave it 4 stars and said, I did this for you, Daddy Fincher. So clearly just watched it for Mank. Yeah.
Someone said Ratatouille walked so Citizen Kane could run. Do you have that one?
No. That's so funny because I always say, and I'm obsessed with Ratatouille and I'm obsessed with Babe. And I always say,
those are both so good.
Babe walked so Ratatouille could run.
Oh, wait. Is there that much similarity between Babe and Ratatouille?
Okay, you take an animal who's not meant to do a certain function, an underdog, if you will, who then takes on that role and is a triumph and is lovely and yeah, I guess you're right. Both excellent movies. I love them.
Babe is so
much. I know.
It's so good.
I'll literally cry thinking about it. Like I will. Oh my god! Please stop! Don't.
Another 5-star review. I'm never watching this shit. It was made in 1941, bro. What?
Oh my gosh. 0.5 star. When I was in 8th grade, I knew that the 8th grade prom would have pasta marinara, which I hated. So I spent months working to force myself to at least like marinara sauce enough to be able to eat it at the 8th grade prom. Now I actually have an appreciation for a good marinara.
Oh, wow.
It's not done. I saw this for the first time around then, and I'm 24 now. Still wondering how many times I have to watch it to not completely hate it. It still hasn't worked. This is lame as hell.
Yeah, sounds like they should just... First of all, if it takes you years to like marinara sauce, which is the most basic...
It's delicious.
Oh my God.
Someone just gave it a heart and said, baby boy wants sleddy with a bunch of sad faces.
Oh, here's a good one. Another 0.5 star. Imagine if the sled was actually a school bus that Joan Cusack wouldn't let you rent for a field trip until you got her drunk at a bar.
Oh my God, yes. It's School of Rock.
Oh.
You didn't get it?
No, because I haven't seen it since the theater.
What?
That was the last time I saw it.
No.
Yeah.
Love that movie.
I went on, that was an early date movie for me.
How cute. Like a tweeny date.
Yeah, I was a sophomore in high school.
You just thought that person just wrote that.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I think that's all I got. Yeah, that's all I got.
Yeah, I feel like we got some good ones.
Consensus on Citizen Kane. It's a masterpiece. There's no denying it.
Oh, you do think so?
You don't?
No, I do.
It's a masterpiece. It's not a movie I'm emotionally attached to. That's it.
I'm telling. Next week's movie is 1959, Douglas Sirk, starring Lana Turner, John Gavin, and Sandra Dee. It is Imitation of Life.
It's gonna be fun. The way it's described on the BFI website is Lana Turner shines in Douglas Sirk's moving rags to riches tale. Sounds like my kind of movie. Well, thanks for joining us, guys. We hope we added something new to the discussion of Citizen Kane. If not the world's discussion, just your personal discussion. This has been News on the March.